The views expressed, opinions given, and any communication made between the hosts and guests of What Are You Afraid of Horror and Paranormal Show do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Para X Radio, EMC Network, or all services that play this show. The hosts and services are not responsible for the actions of their guests, and the original rights of all intellectual property is retained by the creator, and all work is used with either permission or Creative Commons license. The show is for entertainment purposes only. I'm horror author T. Fox Dunham.
And I'm horror author and filmmaker Phil Thomas.
And tonight we're asking you...
What are you afraid of? Philadelphia's horror home with hosts T. Fox Dunham and Phil Thomas.
You know, we always start the episode talking about the weather.
Yeah, we do.
Because we're just so glad it's warm.
I know. Finally.
Fine. And it really has turned to spring in April.
Yeah.
Pretty early.
Yeah. You remember last April?
Yeah, it was cold. We got a snowstorm.
Yeah.
In April.
It was terrible. I remember wearing my winter coat up until like end of April, beginning of May. It was just very unseasonable.
And I've got my plants out.
I know, it's great.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing some more. We got a really bad rainstorm on Sunday night, remember?
Yeah.
And I put my seedlings out, and the storm hit, and I moved them to shelter outside and put plastic tops on the boxes. And the storm was so bad, the wind ripped the plastic tops off, and the wind battered the side of the house with rain, so my seedlings still got drenched.
Oh, God. Jeez.
And I have no idea where the tops are. The neighbors must have them.
Okay.
So I'm a little worried that the seeds drowned, which can happen. No. So I have a third box that I'm putting out.
Okay.
You know, with rosemary, all the mints, thyme, lavender, parsley, more kitchen herbs. But I'm doing a whole bunch because I'm going to grow a bunch and give them away to friends.
That's cool.
So you got some coming to you.
I'm looking forward to that.
You got some coming.
That sounds good.
Plant one in the house, you know, or keeping them in the, in a pot. So But this is episode 116, Spring Spirits of What Are You Afraid of? Horror and Paranormal Show on Para X Radio on Friday nights. You can find us over at the website at www.whatayouafraidofpodcast.com. Good God's the website. Lots of problems there. There's this issue with it. I don't know what's going on with it.
What's wrong?
Some of our apps have broken down. Jeez. It needs me to update something in the HTML, and I'm at a loss. And so I haven't been updating it like I should, but I just got my friend Debs, the author Debs. Deborah Drake, Mm-hmm. And she's going to take a look at it for me. Okay. And she does website design.
Okay, all right.
If any authors need a website, come to Debs. We'll tell you where she is.
Wonderful.
But we got a cool show.
Yeah, we do.
Episode 116, Spring Spirits. I'm T. Fox Dunham.
And I'm Phil Thomas.
And this is What Are You Afraid of? And tonight we have a ghost story that someone from Florida sent in to us about a shadow figure that's haunting her home.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of creepy stuff. And in addition, we also have a reading that David Walton has done. He found an old 19th century author, Sir Arthur Thomas Quiller-Couch.
Nice.
Thank you. Sir Arthur Thomas Quiller-Couch. You know, not the kind you sit on.
Right.
Unless you like that sort of thing. But it's called The Seventh Man. It's a play in one act. It was published in 1936 under the pseudonym Quiller-Couch. And it's a dark story of isolation, like up in the Arctic. And we have part one tonight. And David does such a wonderful job with the story. So, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. So is this shadowy figure? Is this a happy, jolly, shadowy figure?
No, it's one of the dark, scary kinds.
Oh, the dark, scary kind.
Yeah. Not that there aren't many other kinds.
There's pretty much only one kind when it comes to a shadow person.
Yeah, there is. It's dark and spooky.
But I think it'd be interesting to find one that's actually, like Casper the Friendly Ghost, a friendly one.
We need some friendly ghosts.
Yeah, we need some friendly ones.
Ghosts are always either you have the stories of family members or friends who come to you to protect you or warn you, or give you inspiration,
right?
Or it's something sad, maudlin, a tragedy.
Yeah.
And that's the kind... There's nothing in the middle. Ghosts don't come back to tell you a joke. You know?
Well, I would love to hear a joke from a ghost sometime, though.
That's next episode. I'm going to find some ghost jokes.
Some ghost jokes.
Send them in.
Send in your ghost jokes. Send in the jokes that ghosts have told you.
Yes.
Yes.
Find our email at www.whatareyouafraidofpodcast.com. The website's still operating. I just haven't updated it.
Right.
So all of our episodes are over there, plus a ton of ghost stories, articles, interviews, links to different things that we do on the show. So go check it out at www.whatareyouafraidofpodcast.com. So we're going to start the show with The Shadow Figure, read by David Walton. I wrote it up, and it is on episode 116, Spring Spirits. Deprived of root and branch and rind, yet flowers I bear of every kind, and such is my prolific power, they bloom in less than half an hour. Jonathan Swift's A Maypole on What Are You Afraid Of?
What are you afraid of?
Era X Radio.
What are you afraid of?
Hi, I'm Tim Wagner, Bram Stoker award-winning author.
Hashtag Grave Girls.
This is Katrina Weidman of Destination America's Paranormal Lockdown.
This is Jim Chambers. I'm the author of The Engines of Sacrifice.
This is Jasper Barr, award-winning author of The Final Cut.
And you're listening to What Are You Afraid Of?
What Are You Afraid Of?
To What Are You Afraid Of?
What are you afraid of?
Love it. Fantoxic, please. Fantoxic.
The Shadow Figure. Ghost story submitted and written by Alana Pugliese, Jacksonville, Florida. Read by David Walton. My name is Alana Pugliese. I live in Jacksonville, Florida. Below are a few stories of encounters that have happened in my house. A little background and theory of mine about my house is that it was built in the 1940s. And I am located next to a railroad track, and a few blocks from an old power plant, and a block from a home for the mentally disabled, where they may have had many deaths over the years. I feel like the energy around my house is a big factor from my house. I am the third owner of the house, and I do not believe anyone has died in or around my house. I have a few encounters to tell you about that have happened at my house. I have been living in my house for 3 years now, which is an old 1940s cottage-style house. The first incident happened within the first 8 months of living in the home. I went for a long walk/run earlier that day through the neighbourhood. Nothing strange happened until that night, when I woke up in the middle of the night to sounds of a door unlocking. The sound was coming from the kitchen, where there is a door to the driveway, the most commonly used door. After hearing a door open and close, I called out for my mother, who was the only person in the area who had a key to my house, but received no answer. I started to feel extreme fear and panic as the sounds of footsteps slowly started. My body was paralysed. I tried my best to move, but I couldn't. I was so scared. I managed to throw the covers over my head while the slow growing sense of doom fell upon me. It was a fear I have never felt before or since that time. The only thing I could think of that I could do was to scream prayer, but since I am not very active in religion, I did not know any to use. I started to yell, "Go away! Jesus will protect me," repeatedly. I don't recall falling asleep, but I must have passed out from exhaustion. but it wasn't over. The next thing I knew, I was dreaming. Well, more of a nightmare. I was at the bottom of a large set of stairs that were pitch black halfway up. The feeling of doom and extreme fear was back. I could feel it moving closer down the stairs, even though I couldn't see anything. I started yelling, "Jesus will protect me!" At this point it was making me speak in tongues, but I resisted. As abrupt as everything started, it all ended. It was now the morning. There was a weird calm throughout the house. At first I thought it was all a dream, but my voice was hoarse and almost gone from yelling. Then I knew it wasn't all a dream. I do believe ghosts or other supernatural beings can stick to you. The neighbourhood I live in is very old. There was no activity until a year and a half later. One evening I was sitting on the couch reading my book with my cat when I heard a bang from my built-in bookcase. Something told me not to check since my cat was staring at the spot where it had come from with such intensity. Soon it was time for bed. Even though I was curious to see what had fell, I wanted to wait. The next morning before leaving for work, I checked to see what the fallen item was. It was my plastic crucifix, and it was turned over on its side. This left me an uneasy feeling. It would take some effort to knock it over, since it was a plastic crucifix that is meant to stand upright, so the bottom is flat and weighted to make it bottom heavy. I put it back in the same spot and quickly examined it to see if there was a reason for it to fall over, but there wasn't. It has been in the same spot for 2.5 years now. After returning from work, I checked to see if the crucifix had fallen over again, but it didn't. But unfortunately, it wasn't over yet. The next morning, around 5 a.m, I was woken up by my cat. Shortly after, I heard a loud thump coming from the living room. This sent chills down my spine. I quickly got up and ready for work, trying to get out of the house as soon as possible. Right before I left the house, I checked out the built-ins where the sound came from. I found the crucifix again on the floor. I quickly picked it up, placed it back and ran out of the house. There was no way it could have fell off the shelf without immense force. During the day, I recruited my best friends to sage my house and salt the doors. After that evening, the house went quiet again with no more issues. Over the last 3 months, I have started to see a shadow figure around the house. However, I do not feel the impending sense of fear or doom I felt with the first incident. This shadow figure also hasn't moved any items. The first time I saw the shadow, it was during the day. I was at the end of the hallway leaving my bedroom when I saw a black shadow pass through into the dining room. No one else was home at the time. The next time was around 10 p.m, and I was texting in the dark, so the only light on was my home security tablet. I felt like the open door was growing darker, and I began to get a watched feeling. I quickly put my phone down and rolled over, tossing the covers over my head. I stared at the light that shined from the tablet on the wall, when suddenly all the light blacked out for a moment. I shot up and turned the light on, but nothing was there. The most recent time was only a few weeks ago in the morning. The house was bright from the morning sun. I was staring down the hallway at the light coming through the bathroom, leaving a doorway-shaped light on the hallway wall, when suddenly all the light disappeared, but as quick as it disappeared, it came back. I don't have a terrified feeling or any sense of doom that comes over me whenever the shadow figure is present. Please let me know if you would like any additional information. I love ghost stories and spooky things.
Mercy, a new horror medical thriller from author T. Fox Dunham, published by Bloodbound Books. Based on the author's horrific battle with a rare form of lymphoma that involved intense chemotherapy and radiation, Fox turns the horror of his experience into terror on the page.
William Saint is dying of cancer. On most days, death seems like a humane alternative to the treatment. Stricken with fever, William is rushed to Mercy, notorious as a place to send the sickest of the poor and uninsured to be forgotten, and finds the hospital in even worse condition than his previous visit.
Willie's memories faded. He grabbed his sack head, the sack head of the scarecrow, picking at the exposed chicken wire to hold them in. However, the memories fell out of the holes in his face. They wormed and crawled from the leather flesh and the old clothing of the scarecrow, then squirmed and wiggled down his body.
The grounds are unkempt, the foundation is cracking, and like the wild mushrooms sprouting from the fissures of decay around it, something is growing inside the hospital. Something dark.
Fangoria gives Mercy 3.5 out of 4 skulls. Dunham has channeled his many brushes with the other side into the exquisitely rendered, lyrical, supernatural hospital thriller Mercy.
It's feeding on the sickness and sustaining itself on the staff, changing them, and now it wants Willie.
Come now, Mr. Saint. Just a little more of that sweet milk. So salty and so good. You won't miss it. And we ever do so like our delicacies here at Mercy Hospital.
Part medical horror, part supernatural suspense, Mercy is a hard-hitting fever dream of a novel. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Tim Wagner, author of The Way of All Flesh and Eat the Night. Available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and bookstores everywhere in both print and digital versions.
Life is an addiction.
Let go. Let it all burn.
We're back.
We're back, and you know what? You were right. That was definitely not the happy kind of... Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was one of those spooky kinds.
Yes.
Thank you for sending that in to us from Florida. Yes. Send your ghost stories in. We need more.
Yeah, we love them.
Yeah, we love getting them from listeners who send them in. That's kind of what we do.
It is what we do.
What are you afraid of? Horror and Paranormal Show on Parax Radio.
So, how's everything going with you? You looking forward to Easter? Easter's this weekend.
Yes, I am, actually. Easter...
Right.
Ostara.
Uh-huh.
We also have Beltane coming up in the pagan cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to tell you a little bit about Easter and the history behind it.
Yeah.
I've compiled some notes and we're going to talk to you about it. And I think you start.
Yeah. So the name Easter originated with the names of an ancient goddess and god. The venerable bead that Easter was named after Ostara.
Yes.
She was the great mother goddess of the Saxon people in northern Europe.
Ooh, the Saxons.
Yeah.
Now, there's a Sumerian legend, which is one of the sources of the Easter myth, and it's the story of the gods Dumazi and his wife Inanna, also known as Ishtar. It's an epic story called The Descent of Inanna, and it was found inscribed on cuneiform, on clay tablets, and they date back to 2100 BC.
Oh. When Tumaz dies, Ishtar mourns and follows him into the underworld. She enters through the 7 gates. She is made naked and bowed low, judged, killed, and hung for all to see. Ooh. With her gown, the earth loses its fertility. Crops don't grow. Animals stop giving birth. All life is dying on the earth.
All right, so Inanna's missing for 3 days, and she has all these servants, and her servants entreat the other gods to go and find her. Now, one god listens, Aniki. He creates 2 creatures, they don't say what creatures, and they carry the plant of life and water of life down to the underworld. And then they're sprinkled on the bodies of Inanna and Dumazi, and they bring them back to life. Now, this begins a cycle of traveling back and forth to the underworld, and this explains the seasons of winter and summer.
Yeah, and Ishtar is Babylonian, and she is also known as Astarte. Her counterparts in Greece and Rome were Aphrodite and Venus. So in the 4th century, when Christians identified the exact site in Jerusalem where the empty tomb of Jesus had been located, they picked the old location of the temple of Aphrodite. The temple was then torn down and a church was built.
Okay, yeah, that happens a lot, actually. Now, that's just one of the many stories of the cycle of life and death, fertility, conception, renewal. And it usually involves a descent into the underworld, which ends in the triumph of life.
Wow, that's interesting stuff. Yes. And Easter was originally a celebration of Astarte, goddess of spring, otherwise known as Ostara.
Ostara, yeah.
Ostara.
Ostra or...
Ostra.
Or Istra.
Ostra.
Yeah.
One of the most revered aspects of Ostara for both ancient and modern observers is a spirit of renewal.
Of renewal. Winter becomes spring, life begins again. Now, neo-pagans, we celebrate the spring equinox on March 21st. And Ostara marks that day when the light is equal to the dark. The goddess is the bringer of light, and often comes with a rabbit or a hare, and the bunny also represents fertility, as does the egg.
That's interesting facts there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. In Germanic myth, it is said that Ostara healed a wounded bird she found in the woods by changing it into a hare, but still partially a bird. So the hare showed its gratitude to the goddess by laying eggs as gifts.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the egg is a symbol of fertility. Like Eddie Izzard says, eggs are for shagging, chocolate,
Yeah.
And it's renewed life that goes back to the ancient Persians and Egyptians. Now, they colored in 8 eggs during the spring festival. In Egypt, the eggs symbolize the sun. And neo-pagans today, we create bonfires, and some of them jump over the coals because the heat's down there.
Right.
And it's supposed to imbue you with fertility.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
You're not going to do that?
No, I'm not doing that.
You're probably better off.
My wife says no.
That.
Yeah.
She already told you, right?
Yes. No jumping over bonfires.
No.
Those are my boys.
Absolutely, right? So yeah, but in many Christian traditions, the custom of giving eggs at Easter celebrates new life.
Mm-hmm.
Christians remember that Jesus, after dying on the cross, rose from the dead, showing that life could win over death. For Christians, the egg is a symbol of Jesus' resurrection, as when they are cracked open, they stand for the empty tomb.
So they've taken these old symbols,
yeah,
and brought it into their religion, which was common,
right,
and it allowed more pagans to sort of assimilate into the Christian faith. But again, it always goes back to the concepts of renewal, life, journeying into the underworld, coming back as Christ died,
right,
did battle, returned.
Right.
Resurrection,
yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of see this single myth that's been evolving in human culture.
But I'm trying to remember the day. Not the day. I know the day.
Yeah.
Good Friday. The exact time that he apparently or supposedly died on the cross. I believe it was 3 in the afternoon.
Was it really?
I believe, yeah.
A popular pagan number and symbol, probably devised by medieval scholars.
Right. Yeah.
But
Makes sense.
Now, speaking of Easter and Christ and all this stuff, we've clown news. Can you believe it? Clown news.
From Jesus to clown news.
That's What Are You Afraid Of on Para X Radio at Friday nights at 9 p.m. We're Horror and Paranormal Show. I'm T. Fox Dunham.
I'm Phil Thomas.
And you can also check us out at the website at www.whatayouafraidofpodcast.com. But we got clown news. Cue's the jingle.
Clown news.
There it is.
I love that jingle.
God, Bill loves the jingle.
Every time I hear that jingle, I get excited.
He always does it to me. He goes, clown news.
Clown news.
And of course, we haven't had too many clowns in the news lately because we've moved on to things like Momo and the Slender Man and stuff. But it turns out in Houston, okay, this is fun. There were these 2 grandparents, Aretha Cardinal and her husband Joseph Nelson, and they're sitting inside at their truck outside their home when dastardly clown criminals wearing clown masks and armed with machetes, Jose Lugo and Luis Jimenez, they come upon the old couple and demand they give them money. The clowns didn't do any tricks, jokes, funny stunts, nothing.
No. At least do something to earn the money first.
I know.
Earn the money,
So he says, the grandfather, I'm sitting here talking to my wife, and the next thing I know, I look up and I see somebody running towards me with a white clown mask on and a machete.
Jeez.
That's what Joseph Nelson said. He reached his hand through the window, put it on my throat like this, and I'm like, dude, you serious? You're trying to rob me with a machete?
Oh my God.
So Joseph, the grandfather, he grabs the weapon. Avoiding the squirting flowers in the giant shoes, he gets control of the weapon, and the grandmother gets out of the car, she grabs her granddaughter's scooter, and she starts beating the clown thieves with it.
Oh my God.
And she actually kept them there, subdued, until the police arrived. And she said, it was really scary, but I was like, it was either us or them, and not us, she said. You're not going to steal no money. We ain't got no money. That's a direct quote.
Right. Okay.
Now, both clowns were taken into custody and were charged with aggravated robbery. They're being held in Galveston County Jail on bond.
I would love to see that holding cell that night with these two guys sitting in there dressed as clowns,
Beaten by grandparents.
With their granddaughter's scooter, right?
With a machete.
Beat down by scooter.
The scooter got me. Watch out for them scooters.
I know.
They're bad. Well, it's like Allison. She works in Chestnut Hill, and the Citizens Bank got robbed 2 weeks ago.
Oh my God, really?
This guy goes in there with a gun. He goes running out. He didn't know anything about it. And he grabs the dye packs. He gets out the door. The dye packs explode. Wow. Purple. And what can he do? He drops all the money and he runs.
Wow.
He comes back. A couple days ago, he tried again.
Really?
He goes in. He robs the place, but this time they had him on camera twice. The crew recognized him. The police arrested him that night.
Stupid criminals,
yeah,
right?
It's just, do a little research. We're authors. Some authors could build nuclear bombs or rob the Vatican or something. That's the kind of research we do.
Right.
And it's always scary, the stuff you put into the computer, because you're always afraid someone's going to think, like, he's putting in stuff about espionage and spying on the U.S. government. Like, they're going to come down on you. I'm just a writer. Don't. Anyway, that was clown news.
I know. It's research. It's not...
it's research. Please believe
it's for fiction. Yeah.
On What Are You Afraid Of? Horror and Paranormal Show on Parax Radio on Friday nights at 9 p.m. This is episode 116, Spring Spirits, and we're enjoying the spring.
Oh, we are. This is great. Have you done any cookouts yet?
Not yet.
Not yet?
But I will be cooking trout tonight on the barbecue.
Oh, really?
I do a nice recipe. Lemon slices, onions, sprigs of rosemary, rainbow trout, and tinfoil. Put them on the grill for about 5 minutes. Little couscous on the side. Bellissima.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I'll be doing that tonight. And I'm drinking a Chardonnay.
Are you?
I am.
Is that what you have in there?
Little tonight. And why not?
Is that what you're drinking?
I am.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. A little fizzy. It's called Barefoot Wine.
Oh, Barefoot, yeah.
It's the cheapest wine you can get.
But I've never actually had it, but I've heard it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad for us middle-class people.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are going to pause now, and we are going to be back in a few minutes on What Are You Afraid Of? Horror and Paranormal Show.
Your source for everything paranormal. Para-X. UFOs are found in Renaissance art, on ancient coins, and etched on cave walls. They are even reported in the Bible. But more surprising is when UFOs are seen the most, in times of war. Through centuries, thousands of UFO sightings have been made by high-ranking officials, military pilots, and ordinary soldiers. Often, these fantastic appearances occur at the height of great battles. From World War I to D-Day, to Korea, Vietnam, and beyond, military investigators are baffled. Why do UFO sightings spike so drastically during wartime? Could it be mistaken aircraft? Or is someone, or something, looking in on us? In UFOs in Wartime, What They Didn't Want You to Know, Mac Maloney chronicles centuries of these incredible sightings and tries to solve the puzzle of why so many UFOs are seen while humanity is at war. Read about the scare ships, the ghost planes, and the ghost rockets, alien giants in the jungles of Vietnam, UFOs controlling our ICBM bases, dogfights with flying saucers during the Gulf War, and more. 300 pages of unbelievable stories, along with many startling photographs. That's UFOs in Wartime, What They Didn't Want You to Know, by Mac Maloney. On sale at your local bookstore or on Amazon.com.
Grey Matter Press presents a 21st Century Gothic from John C. Foster, the author of Mr. White. The Isle. There's a secret at the edge of the world. When a deadly menace threatens a remote island community, United States Marshal Virgil Bone digs into the island's macabre past. But some secrets should never be uncovered. Some curses should be believed. And some people will kill to keep it so. The Isle is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other fine retailers.
In the future, roving bands of comic book podcasts will savage the wasteland, once known as the Internet. One podcast, the Grolix Podcast, may not be the biggest, may not be the funniest, may not be the most well-spoken. Wait, what was my point again? Oh yes, the Grawlix Podcast. Listen to it at grawlixpodcast.com. That's GRAWLIX podcast.com.
We are back on What Are You Afraid Of?
Yes, we are back.
God, after 2 failed attempts here, between lawnmowers and failed batteries.
Yeah.
And of course, dying batteries are a common complaint of ghost hunters.
I was literally just going to say that. Mm-hmm. That could be what it is.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
Now, we love in the spring. We're loving the warm weather. Mm-hmm. And I'll be doing some trout tonight.
Yeah, on the grill, right?
Yeah, on the grill.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it out there.
That sounds good.
And we were hoping to get down to the Jersey Shore on Friday, but it looks like it's going to rain. I know.
Again.
I know, again, exactly. Again. It's just been rain. I mean, it's the way it's supposed to be. Just do it when my wife is working.
Yeah, you know, and real quick, speaking of grilling,
mm-hmm.
You know, and batteries dying.
Yes.
The battery died when we were halfway through our first take at this. The other night, I grilled for the first time. Mm-hmm. I got 5 minutes in and the gas died.
Right. Oh, that happens every time it's here. Yeah. Always getting new gas.
Yeah. And this was like 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, geez, that's done.
And my buddy and I, we had to run. We went to like 4 places. Finally because I literally had the stuff on
the grill. Yeah,
the grill, and I'm like, wait a second, there's no fire. Like there was when I heated it, but then that was a mess. So it was a very similar situation to the battery.
To the battery dying.
Yeah.
Now we're hoping to go down to the shore. That's what we do around Easter. Mm-hmm. And I've been looking up a couple of ghost stories around the shore. Right. And this is the story of Captain Don Sadavante. Now, he and his crew sail from Spain. Mm-hmm. They come to the American coast looking for loot and booty.
Oh, booty?
Yes.
What kind of booty?
Well, treasure, silver, gold.
Oh, that kind of booty.
Yeah, I'm sure they got
some other kind of booty, maybe.
It's a long trip. You know, I'm sure they came ashore for some booty.
Oh, okay.
But now, they were really successful. They got a lot of booty, both kinds, I guess. But now they have to kick up some of it to the Spanish monarchy. That's what they did. Mm-hmm. Now, the crew did not want to do that. They were out of range, so they mutiny, right?
Okay.
They tie Captain Sandoval to the mast, and they starve him and dehydrate him. They don't give him water. And he's begging before he dies, "Water, please, just one sip." And he's still up there. Mm-hmm. They sail up the coast, and when you know it, a storm in the Atlantic sinks them like probably right around Atlantic City.
Okay.
And I say that because immediately reports start coming in of people living in the area, and this is going on to modern day. They see a pirate ship out there, and it's something like from the first Pirates of the Caribbean. There have been like 30 of them now.
Okay.
And they look over and they see skeletons wearing sailor garb and, you know, still crewing the ship. And as they pass by, they hear them say, "Water, please, just one sip."
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I feel bad for them, too, because all they really wanted was just to hit up Caesar's Palace and do some gambling.
I know. That's something else I found. I found some really cool ghost stories from the Taj Mahal.
Oh, really?
Like this one story of a gambler who lost everything, and he leaps off the 10th floor, and people still see a man committing suicide.
He lost everything, huh?
And he jumps, and they still see his ghost.
Wow.
Jumping off the Taj Mahal.
Wow. Well, there's a lesson there.
Yeah.
Don't bet your house. Don't bet your life savings, you know?
Like on that episode of The Blacklist. Last Friday, that was called The Blacklist.
Wow.
So you going to have fun this Easter?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have fun. My mom, you know, she ended up in the hospital, and she's going to be moved to a rehab center soon.
Okay, good.
Because she has some walking issues right now. It's a long story, but bottom line is hopefully we'll have it worked out. We don't know exactly where she's going, but worked out by tomorrow.
I hope so.
Yeah, so wherever she's at, I'm going to spend some time with her on Easter, and then afterwards I'm going to go to some relatives, my cousins, aunts. And
then come get some carrot cake.
It should be fun. Yeah, right? It should be fun.
I'm doing this carrot cake, man. I shave the carrots in little strips, right? It's all from scratch.
Okay.
And I put it in a bowl, and I dump in about a cup of brown sugar and a cup of rum.
Okay.
And you let it sit there for about a couple of hours.
Right.
And the sugar and the alcohol draws out the essential oils in the carrots, creating this carroty, fruity, slurry, sweet, thick mess.
Wow.
And then you put it into the dough, into the cake batter.
Well, hopefully you'll save me some.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Unless my in-laws get to it first. Right. And I also do a huge thing of cream cheese icing with a rum in it.
Wow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'll do that on Sunday. Because it's for everybody.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Now, we're going to end the show with a wonderful play recorded by our British folk singer David Walton. God bless you, David, for all you do for us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, he does a lot.
It's called The Seventh Man. It was a play written by the pseudonym Q, who was Quiller-Couch. He was an author he was born in 1863, died in 1944. He was a Cornish writer. He published under the pseudonym Q. He was a prolific novelist, and he also originated the phrase, kill your darlings.
Oh, wow.
Which means for writers, you have to edit the things you love
out.
Yeah, to make the story work.
Yeah, and, I know Stephen King kind of made that quote a little famous.
Yeah.
But I never knew where it originated.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
And stuff we learn on What Are You Afraid of? Horror and Paranormal Show on Parax Radio Friday nights at 9 p.m. And also check out our mostly complete website at www.whatayouafraidofpodcast.com. This is episode 116, Spring Spirits. I'm T. Fox Dunham.
And I'm Phil Thomas.
Well, here we are again. I thought that perhaps the nightmare was over, but no. I am summoned once again and can only obey. I am in thrall of Fox and unable to resist his powers, his hypnotic powers, masquerading as charm and friendship, his transatlantic, perhaps global powers. And so, every Sunday morning I sit in front of a microphone and read. Every Sunday afternoon I edit the audio file I have been commanded to create. Every Sunday evening I press send on an email to Philadelphia with an MP3 attached and tremble as I await the verdict of my master. I changed my name from David Walton to Brendan Shawland and created music which I liberally sprinkled throughout the internet in websites including SoundCloud and Bandcamp in a pathetic attempt to throw him off the scent. Those hopeless breadcrumbs are still available if you care to listen, so that you will know what not to do when your time comes. That's right, it didn't work. He tracked me down, and I am once again his creature. If you are listening to this, you are in grave danger, and I can only urge you to flee. Flee! Before it is too late, before you find that you too are a voice actor on whatayouafraidof.com.
Oh. UFOs. Bigfoot. Cryptids.
All this is on the call. You think you listening to the words of Paranormal X.
The Seventh Man by A.T. Quiller-Couch. Published in 1900. Part 1. In a one-roomed hut, high within the Arctic Circle, and only a little south of the 80th parallel, 6 men were sitting, much as they had sat evening after evening for months. They had a clock, and by it they divided the hours into day and night. As a matter of fact, it was always night. But the clock said 8:30, and they called the time evening. The hut was built of logs, with an inner skin of rough match boarding, daubed with pitch. It measured 17 feet by 14, but opposite the door, 4 bunks, 2 above and 2 below, took a yard off the length, and this made the interior exactly square. Each of these bunks had 2 doors, with brass latches on the inner side, so that the owner, if he chose, could shut himself up and go to sleep in a sort of cupboard. But as a rule, he closed one of them only, that by his feet. The other swung back with its brass latch showing. The men kept these latches in a high state of polish. Across the angle of the wall to the left of the door and behind it when it opened, 3 hammocks were slung, one above another. No one slept in the uppermost. But the feature of the hut was its fireplace, and this was merely a square hearthstone raised slightly above the floor in the middle of the room. Upon it, and upon a growing mountain of soft grey ash, the fire burned always. It had no chimney, and so the men lost none of its warmth. The smoke ascended steadily and spread itself under the blackened beams and roof boards in dense blue layers. But about 18 inches beneath the spring of the roof there ran a line of small trapdoors with sliding panels to admit the cold air, and below these the room was almost clear of smoke. A newcomer's eyes might have smarted, but these men stitched their clothes and read in comfort. To keep the updraft steady, they had plugged every chink and crevice in the matchboarding below the trapdoors with moss, and paid the seams with pitch. The fire they fed from a stack of drift and wreckwood piled to the right of the door, and fuel for the fetching strewed the frozen beach outside. Old trees notched into lengths by lumberers' axes and washed thither from they knew not what continent. But the wreckwood came from their own ship, the J.R. McNeil, which had brought them from Dundee. They were Alexander Williamson of Dundee, better known as the Gaffer; David Fayed, also of Dundee; George Lashman of Cardiff; Long Eade of Hale in Cornwall; Charles Sulchester, otherwise the Snipe, of Ratcliffe Highway or thereabouts; and Daniel Cooney, shipped at Tromsø 6 weeks before the wreck, an Irish-American by birth and of no known address. The Gaffer reclined in his bunk, reading by the light of a smoky and evil-smelling lamp. He had been mate of the J.R. McNeil, and was now captain as well as patriarch of the party. He possessed 3 books: the Bible, Milton's Paradise Lost, and an odd volume of The Turkish Spy. Just now he was reading The Turkish Spy. The lamplight glinted on the rim of his spectacles and on the silvery hairs in his beard, the slack of which he had tucked under the edge of his blanket. His lips moved as he read, and now and then he broke off to glance mildly at Fayed and the Snipe, who were busy beside the fire with a greasy pack of cards, or to listen to the peevish grumbling of Lashman in the bunk below. Lashman had taken to his bed 6 weeks before with scurvy, and complained incessantly, and though they hardly knew it, these complaints were wearing his comrades' nerves to fiddle strings, doing the mischief that cold and bitter hard work and the cruel loneliness had hitherto failed to do. Long Eade lay stretched by the fire in a bundle of skins, reading in his only book, the Bible, open now at the Song of Solomon. Cooney had finished patching a pair of trousers and rolled himself in his hammock, whence he stared at the roof and the moonlight streaming up there through the little trapdoors and chivying the layers of smoke. Whenever Lashman broke out into fresh quaverings of self-pity, Cooney's hands opened and shut again, till the nails dug hard into the palm. He groaned at length, exasperated beyond endurance. "Oh, stow it, George! Hang it all, man!" He checked himself, sharp and short, repentant, and rebuked by the silence of the others. They were good seamen all, and tender dealings with a sick shipmate was part of their code. Lashman's voice, more querulous than ever, cut into the silence like a knife. "That's it. You've thought it for weeks and now you say it. I've knowed it all along. I'm just an encumbrance. And the sooner you're shut of me, the better, says you. You needn't to fret. I'll soon be out of it, out there, alongside of Bill." "Easy there, matey." The snipe glanced over his shoulder and laid his cards face downwards. "Here, let me give the bed a shake-up. It'll ease you." "It'll make me quiet, you mean? Plucky deal you care about easing me, any of you." "Get out with your nonsense, Dan didn't mean it." The snipe slipped an arm under the invalid's head and rearranged the pillow of skins and gunny bags. "He didn't he? Let him say it then." The gaffer read on, his lips moving silently. Heaven knows how he had acquired this strayed and stained and filthy little demi-octavo, with the arms of Saumarez on its bookplate. The 6th volume of letters writ by a Turkish spy, who lived 45 years undiscovered at Paris, giving an impartial account to the Divan at Constantinople of the most remarkable transactions of Europe, and discovering several intrigues and secrets of the Christian courts, especially of that of France, etc., etc. Written originally in Arabic, translated into Italian, and from thence into English by the translator of the 1st volume. The 11th edition, London, printed for G. Strachan, S. Ballard, and a score of booksellers, 1741. Heaven knows why he had read it, since he understood about 1/2, and admired less than 1/10. The Oriental reflections struck him as mainly blasphemous, but the gaffer's religious belief marked down 9/10 of mankind for perdition, which perhaps made him tolerant. At any rate, he read on gravely between the puffs of his short clay. On the 19th of this moon, the king and the whole court were present at a ballet, representing the grandeur of the French monarchy. About the middle of the entertainment, there was an antique dance, performed by 12 masqueraders, in the supposed form of demons. But before they had advanced far in their dance, they found an interloper amongst them, who by increasing the number to 13, put them quite out of their measure. For they practice every step and motion beforehand till they are perfect. Being abashed, therefore, at the unavoidable blunders the 13th antique made them commit, they stood still like fools, gazing at one another, none daring to unmask or speak a word, for that would have put all the spectators into a disorder and confusion. Cardinal Mazzami, who was the chief contriver of these entertainments to divert the king from more serious thoughts, stood close by the young monarch, with the scheme of the ballet in his hand. Knowing therefore that this dance was to consist but of 12 antiques, and taking notice that there were actually 13, he at first imputed it to some mistake. But afterwards, when he perceived the confusion of the dancers, he made a more narrow enquiry into the cause of this disorder. To be brief, they convinced the cardinal that it could be no error of theirs by a kind of demonstration, in that they had but 12 antique dresses of that sort, which were made on purpose for this particular ballet. That which made it seem the greater mystery was that, when they came behind the scenes to uncase and examine the matter, they found but 12 antiques, whereas on the stage there were 13. Let him say it. Let him say he didn't mean it, the rotten Irishman. Cooney flung a leg wearily over the side of his hammock, jerked himself out and shuffled across to the sick man's berth. Of course I didn't mean it. It just took me, you see, lying up yonder and hugging me thoughts in this wilderness. I swear to you, George, and you'll just wet your throat to show there's no bad blood, and that you believe me." He took up a pannikin from the floor beside the bunk, pulled a hot iron from the fire, and stirred the frozen drink. The invalid turned his shoulder pettishly. "I didn't mean it," Cooney repeated. He set down the pannikin and shuffled wearily back to his hammock. The gaffer blew a long cloud and stared at the fire, at the smoke mounting and the grey ash dropping, at David Fayed dealing the cards and licking his thumb between each. Long Eid shifted from one cramped elbow to another and pushed his Bible nearer the blaze, murmuring, "Take us the foxes, the little foxes that spoil our vines." "Full hand," the snipe announced. "Aye," David Fayed rolled the quid in his cheek. The cards were so thumbed and tattered that by the backs of them each player guessed pretty shrewdly what the other held. Yet they went on playing night after night, the snipe shrilly blessing or cursing his luck, the Scotsman phlegmatic as a bolster. "Play away, man. What ails ye?" he asked. The sniper dropped both hands to his thighs and sat up stiff and listening. "Whist, outside the door." All listened. "I hear nothing," said David after 10 seconds. "Hush, man. Listen. There again." They heard now. Cooney slipped down from his hammock, stole to the door and listened, crouching, with his ear close to the jamb. The sound resembled breathing, or so he thought for a moment. Then it seemed rather as if some creature was softly feeling about the door, fumbling its coating of ice and frozen snow. Cooney listened. They all listened. Usually, as soon as they stirred from the scorching circle of the fire, their breath came from them in clouds. It trickled from them now in thin wisps of vapour. They could almost hear the soft grey ash dropping on the hearth. A log spluttered, then the invalid's voice clattered in. "It's the bears, the bears! They've come after Bill, and next it'll be my turn. I warned you, I told you he wasn't deep enough. Oh Lord, have mercy, mercy!" He pattered off into a prayer, his voice and teeth chattering. "Hush," commanded the gaffer gently, and Lashman choked on a sob. "It ain't bears," Cooney reported, still with his ear to the door. "Leastways, we've had bears before. The foxes, maybe. Let me listen." Long Eid murmured, "Take us the foxes, the little foxes." "I believe you're right," the gaffer announced cheerfully. "A bear would sniff louder, though there's no telling. The snow was falling an hour back, and I dessay 'tis pretty thick outside. If 'tis a bear, we don't want him fooling on the roof, and I misdoubt the drift by the north corner is pretty tall by this time. Is he still there?" I felt something then, through the chink here, like a warm breath. It's gone now. Come here, Snipe, and listen. Breath, eh? Did it smell like bear? I don't know. I didn't smell nothing to notice. Here, put your head down, close. The snipe bent his head, and at that moment the door shook gently. All stared, and saw the latch move up, and falteringly descend on the staple. They heard the click of it. The door was secured within by 2 stout bars. Against these there had been no pressure. The men waited in a silence that ached. But the latch was not lifted again. The snipe, kneeling, looked up at Cooney. Cooney shivered and looked at David Fayed. Long Eid, with his back to the fire, softly shook his feet free of the rugs. His eyes searched for the gaffer's face, but the old man had drawn back into the gloom of his bunk, and the lamplight shone only on a fringe of grey beard. He saw Long-Eed's look, though, and answered it quietly as ever. "Take a brace of guns aloft and fetch us a look round. Wait, if there's a chance of a shot, the trap works. I tried it this afternoon with the small chisel." Long-Eed lit his pipe, tied down the earpieces of his cap, lifted a light ladder off its staples and set it against a roof beam. Then, with the guns under his arm, quietly mounted. His head and shoulders wavered and grew vague to sight in the smoke wreaths. "Heard anything more?" he asked. "Nothing since," answered the snipe. With his shoulder, Long-Eed pushed up the trap. They saw his head framed in a panel of moonlight, with one frosty star above it. He was wriggling through. "Pitch him up a sleeping bag, somebody," the gaffer ordered, and Cooney ran with one. "Thank you, mate," said Long-Eed, and closed the trap. They heard his feet stealthily crunching the frozen stuff across the roof. He was working towards the eaves overlapping the door. Their breath tightened. They waited for the explosion of his gun. None came. The crunching began again. It was heard down by the very edge of the eaves. It mounted to the blunt ridge overhead. Then it ceased. That's the end of part 1 of The Seventh Man by A.T. Quiller-Couch. The second and final episode will be on What Are You Afraid Of? podcast.com at a future date. I love ghost stories and spooky things.
T. Fox Dunham lives in Philadelphia with his wife Allison. He's a lymphoma survivor, cancer patient, modern bard, and historian. His first book, The Street Martyr, was published by Gutter Books. A major motion picture based on the book is being produced by Throughline Films. Destroying the Tangible Illusion of Reality or Searching for Andy Kaufman, a book about what it's like to be dying of cancer, was recently released from Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing, and Fox has a story in the next Stargate anthology from MGM and Fandemonium Books, Points of Origin. Fox is an active member of the Horror Writers Association, and he's had published hundreds of short stories and articles. His motto is Wrecking Civilization, one story at a time.
Phil Thomas is an author and screenwriter from the suburbs of Philadelphia. His screenplays have been produced into feature films False Face and Always from Darkness, and are available in major retailers such as Best Buy and Target, as well as availability on Netflix and Amazon On Demand. His short films can be viewed on his YouTube channel, Film Zero Presents. He is a member of the International Association of Professional Writers and Editors, and he currently writes for Cultured Vultures, Game Skinny, and BloodyDisgusting.com.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.